Welcome to the election forum for the upcoming GISA elections. Just to introduce myself, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Jenkins. I'm moderating this debate on behalf of Touché, the student magazine here. The reason, just to kind of give a bit of background on that, is that we thought it would be useful to have an independent moderating group as opposed to GISA moderating this debate. In terms, like it is the first time that we've done this, so bear with us. We'll try and make it run as smoothly as possible. In terms of tonight's proceedings, we've got 4 positions which are being elected in the next coming days. We've got events coordinator, PhD representative, master's representative, and president. In terms of the outline for tonight, we're going to start with events before moving on to PhD, masters, and then president. Each candidate will have a chance to give a couple minutes presentation on their platform. They will also have 1 minute at the end to wrap up with any sort of final concluding points. In between those 2 sections, we'll have an open floor. Encourage everyone to get involved. If you've got questions, please raise them. Cara's going to be going around with the roving mic. So please challenge, please raise issues that you're concerned about, and we'll hopefully get a good debate going. In terms of code of conduct, really simple stuff. Just let's keep the discussion issue specific. Let's keep it respectful and positive. We will try, and if people are wanting to ask questions in French, that's obviously encouraged. In terms of how we go about the questions, I'll try and be fair, obviously, in giving each candidate an equal amount of time to respond. I might not go to each person for each question, but appropriate the questions given what people have said in their platforms, just to kind of keep things moving along. Okay, so Umut is going to start us off.
Hi, everyone. It's Umut Yuksel. I'm from Turkey, and I'm currently in my second year Masters in International Relations, Political Science. I'll be starting my PhD in the same program next year. For this debate, we were asked to respond to the following question. If you are elected, where would you like to see GISA next year? My answer is that I would like to see GISA building on the positive developments of the last years and further improve itself in fulfilling its 4 main duties. These duties are to inform, to present, to defend, and to support. First, I would like to see GISA that gives adequate and regular information to the student body about their rights, as well as about the infrastructures and the workings of the Institute. This is especially important in areas where transparency is considered to be generally lacking, such as funding opportunities and scholarship allocation. Second, I would like to see a GISA that manages to reach and represent as many students as possible. I think the online voting system is a good step in this direction. Other measures may be taken in order to achieve a more direct democracy. We're in Switzerland after all, such as the possibility of voting online for certain propositions or amendments. Third, GISA should defend the interests of the students more actively. This should be done in close contact with class representatives and with the supports of faculty when appropriate. Finally, I would like to see a student association that supports the master and PhD students in their academic and cultural initiatives, as well as in coping with life in Geneva. GISA should ensure that students' demands for adequate academic advising and mentoring are heard. There should be cooperation with relevant instances at the University of Geneva to make options available for students facing legal and or mental difficulties. Finally, support is also important for students that are committed to contribute to the life on the campus through student initiatives. GISA should continue supporting new initiatives with great potential, such as the creation of a bilingual student-run academic journal. Thank you for listening. Looking forward to hearing your questions.
Thomas.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Chris, and the Touché team for organizing the forum. I am Tomas. I come from Buenos Aires, Argentina. I'm a first-year political science student. And a year from now, provided I'm elected, I would like for GISA to become a more responsive organization towards the doctoral community. I believe that to be my main role. I believe GISA has done an outstanding job at establishing itself as the main hub for student initiatives, and it has set up a very effective structure to deal with student issues. But in the case of PhD students, I think there is more to be done for GISA to become a reliable partner, especially early on in the program. The Institute, and I would say more generally Geneva, or La Genève Internationale, is becoming a very complex and competitive place in most respects, I would say. Academically, growing amounts of applications, tougher funding conditions throughout the PhD program, and in terms of settling in Geneva, of course, changing immigration laws, potentially a shortage of available funding. This has been forever like that in Geneva. And the job market in the international sector getting more and more constrained. All of this, of course, together with the most obvious challenge, which is to write a thesis. We can probably find some improvements to do for many of these challenges, and I believe we will. But what we can definitely achieve is for GISA to become the main partner for each current and incoming PhD student to overcome these difficulties. Not only just by advocating for appropriate changes and doing whatever we can on our own with our own resources, but above all by providing transparent access to information, reaching out to everyone in need, and being a reliable first point of call within IHEID. As a rep, I believe I would bring a fresh yet informed perspective. I didn't do my master's here, but I've been here for long enough. And yes, and I believe that we should work very, very closely with program reps, remain accountable to you at all times, and reach out particularly to incoming students. Those are my priorities. Thank you very much.
Bonjour tout le monde. Puisque nous voulons promouvoir la diversité, je vais parler en anglais. Non, en français. I think I got you because I still think we're more Anglophone than Francophone here. But my name is Vera. I'm not sure how many of you know me. And I'm running for this position because unlike the other candidates, I've been here long enough as a PhD student to know what the problems we have. And I was wondering if I can get a show of hands of how many PhD students there are here. Okay, 4. You guys have no idea what we're going through. Okay, the first issue is funding, definitely, because the funding has been cut. And a lot of us are struggling, and when you get to the second and the third year, you realize that it's really difficult to be able to balance jobs and PhD writing at the same time. So I have a background in political science, and I used to work for the government, so I have a lot of lobbying experience. So I would, my first point would be to promote funding for PhD students. The second one, and these ones, my programs are actually based on what last year and the previous year, the complaints that PhD students had. So these are not all just my ideas. They are based on like things that people have been asking for years. So this is why I wanted to, to give credit to other people as well, and just to say that these are the concerns of the PhD community which have been made in the past. Office space, I don't know if you're aware, but most other universities have an office for PhD students. And currently we're struggling.
A couple more seconds.
Is that it? Yes. Oh, it's short. Okay. Well, office space, a writing center to help with the MPT. I don't know if you're doing it yet, but it's quite hard to write the MPT. Computer problems help desk, which would fix our computers for free, because a lot of us have problems with laptops and it costs here. And also, I wanted to have a student bar, hub, and lounge, and I think I could efficiently lobby for that with the administration.
Okay, Vera, I'm going to have to cut you off. Because
okay, one more.
I
just wanted to say, I know none of you have kids, or maybe they do, I don't know, but a lot of PhD students have kids already, and what they really need is a crèche or a student daycare on campus, kids daycare, so that they can do their research at the same time. And finally, better career services, which can actually help PhD students get jobs and not just entry-level jobs in the ILO and wherever. All right, thanks for listening.
Thank you. It seems to be a pretty common concern across all three platforms that support is not currently there for PhD students. Umut, particularly, you mentioned that there needs to be better monitoring and supervision and greater academic advice. Am I right in saying that the one academic advisor that master's students have is the same one academic advisor for PhD students? What do you think about that issue?
Thanks for the question. I think it's a common concern of masters and PhD students that we only have one academic advisor, and I think it's not enough. The last GISA survey showed that one of the most important concerns of the PhD students was that they didn't get enough academic advice. So I would really work for getting at least one more academic advisor, and I think it will benefit also the master's students.
Anyone else like to comment on that?
Yeah, in this respect, and one of the things that I included in my platform has to do with working very closely with program reps, because I think academic needs do vary a lot across departments. I don't think there's just a one model fits all in terms of the type of academic advice and the processes that each department has. And so I believe that my way of going about this, I agree that the direction des études normally is just, there for master students. But I do think that it's a question of really working together with program reps rather than pushing ideas forward ourselves from our own department sort of perspective.
I think that sometimes it can be tricky to have two advisors, and I've had a couple of friends who are doing their PhD who are having a lot of problems because their two advisors don't necessarily have the same ideas or the same requisites. So in fact, it's even harder to have two academic advisors than one. What I would propose is to have more something like the writing center, more help with writing and with actually getting your ideas down without necessarily being afraid of putting things on paper so that you'll be evaluated about it afterwards. Because when you're in front of your advisor, you're not free, so to speak, to write whatever. You have to be quite prepared. But the step before is to actually get prepared. Someone needs to help you. So I think that the writing center would help. And also, one more thing would be the administration. I mean, I think we have just one person working for us as PhD students, and almost half the student body are PhDs. So in fact, I think we need to have more administrative staff who can help us with things and do it quickly, such as, I don't know, write attestation letters or help with funding, etc.
Open it up to the floor. Does anybody have any questions? There's a number of PhD students in the room. Any questions specifically from you? Yes?
Hi, hello. I'm Jesse Sargent. I'm the current Vice President for PhD programs. And I'd like to ask the three candidates here, what aspects of the position of Vice President for PhDs would you like to improve on for next year after the inaugural year of a Vice President of PhD programs? Thank you very much.
Vera, do you want to start us off?
Sure. I think you've done a great job, Jesse, and I congratulate you for initiating it. What I would improve is probably more of the loneliness aspect. I think there's a lot of PhD students who feel alone out there, and I think I would do a lot more events and networking, and not just networking for jobs, which is something that is really important when you're at the PhD level, and we have, as Nelly mentioned, a lot of potential here. International Geneva has over 100 international organizations and all the other multinational companies. So one of the things I would improve is try to create a link between those and the PhDs, do more networking events in other areas, not necessarily the university, but do some social stuff at the UN, at Procter & Gamble. Why not have a gala dinner at Procter & Gamble? Once you know people, and I've been here long enough to know a lot of people, you can do that sort of stuff. And so I would focus on doing events and networking, both for social aspects and also for networking for jobs. The other thing I would improve on is working on those PhD students which have families, because I'm single, but there are a lot of PhD students who come here with a husband and with kids, and there's really no support system for them at all. So I would work on the crèche on campus. And I guess that's it for now.
Okay, Jesse, I don't know if I'm in a position to answer this because I don't know what kind of a job you did. You know, I don't receive your emails. So, but one idea that I have, and I'm really motivated to push forward, is to create a network opportunities with students from University of Geneva. I think it's a great opportunity that we live in this city where there are many other PhD students, but we don't really have a lot of contacts with them. The Department of Political Science has already started having colloquiums together with the University of Geneva. I think it should be continued, and there should be network opportunities between both faculties and both student bodies. Thank you.
Hi, thanks for the question. I've been emailing you about this. I think as an outsider to the Institute a year ago, not now, I do have lots of thoughts about how to improve incoming students' well-being, so to speak, broadly. I do think that first years, I've seen this, obviously I've experienced it, and I've seen it in my colleagues, are very anxious about everything that they need to figure out. There's a ton of things that we don't know coming in about how we're expected to be funded, how these RA-TA-ships work, what you should do to get them, what you shouldn't. And obviously people that have done their master's here, they know what they're doing, they've already figured it out. And I do think that is crucial, to start off with less anxiety about those things, with more practical information, that perhaps the Institute has incentives to not be entirely clear about it because they don't want to promise things, and this is obviously, they won't commit to giving out TA ships to everyone. But what we can do is provide more reliable and direct information and say, listen, this is what should happen. These are the options. This is what has happened for most people. I would even create documents like simple guidelines. You're coming in, here are the GISA guidelines to start off your PhD, and that hopefully can reduce anxiety very much. And of course, the practical skills is part of my platform as well, because this is a need that has been clearly manifested around different programs, and lots of people would benefit greatly from it.
Vera, I've got a question for you based on your platform. So you've spoken about two issues so far. Firstly, related to loneliness and lack of community. In your platform, you've suggested concepts like a student bar. And then in terms of lack of support for students who are also parents, the concept of a crèche being introduced. How would, these are pretty big ideas, how would you go about advocating on their behalf?
Okay. Well, as I mentioned before, I worked 5 years for the government, and a lot of it was lobbying and advocacy. I wrote a lot of letters to campaign for certain things. I helped my country become a fully pledged member of the Francophonie. And previously, I used to work for the Public Interest Research Groups, which is a lobby group in Washington, D.C. I used to work for the Women's Foreign Policy Group, which is a lobby group for women's issues in the United States to promote women in foreign policy. So I would start off by communicating directly with all the responsible people here, starting with President Philippe Burin. I would write him a letter, do a letter writing campaign, and I would, do probably a petition among the campus university students to have signatures so we can prove that we really want this. And then I would, start off one by one. What is the place that we can use? I've seen, like now in the new building, I mean, we have plenty of spaces available. We just have to actually, sit down and tell them, okay, this area could be useful for this, 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 and this. There's this many students that want a pool table, a ping pong table, a bar, somewhere you can have coffee. I mean, I spent a lot of years in the United States, and university campuses there are very homey, and I miss that part of studying there. I mean, I like being in Europe. I'm European. I'm from Macedonia. But I think that that's one of the missing things here, which would really improve communication between, especially between PhD students, because PhD students are out there on their own. After the first year, you have no class, you have no communication, you're out there alone.
Thank you. Any further questions at the back there?
So this year, unlike previous years, representatives are supposed to be here 2/3 of each semester of the academic year. Are you going to be able to meet that requirement?
Thomas,
Yeah,
Thomas starts.
weeks. Yeah, in any case, I mean, I have settled in Geneva for now. I have come to do my PhD. As Vera was mentioning, some people come in with their family. I have a wife. And so when people ask me if I'm going back home, well, the only studio flat I have is in Geneva, so I live here. Yeah, so I intend to meet that requirement, and I intend to stay here for the duration of my PhD. I don't know if there was anything else to that question.
Well, next year will be my first year in the PhD program, so I will have to take a lot of classes, and I will have to be in Geneva the whole time.
I'm definitely in Geneva and staying here, probably forever.
Thank you. Other questions? At the back?
Okay, I'm Yixian, second year master in political science. I'll also start my PhD in September. So I want to go back to the first concern of most PhD students, the funding. Can the three candidates explain shortly a bit more about how you can do to improve the funding situation, especially vis-a-vis a tougher situation? And since there are less and less fellowship, scholarship, and also position of TA, and I also think it's better to push the institute to give us a long-term commitment rather than give you a 1-year funding and then you have to ask for next year, but you don't know what you can fund your funding for next year. That's my question. Thank you.
Okay, so ideas on improving funding support and changing the funding structure. Umut, do you want to start?
Yeah, I can start. Well, I'm facing the same problems, trying to find funding, and it's tough because there's a lot of competition. But I think that one of the problems is that we don't know how the decisions are made, how the funding allocations are made, and how the scholarships are attributed mostly. Although there have been developments recently. I mean, GISA has published an information sheet about the criteria and procedure of scholarship allocation. And now there's also a database for external scholarship. You can go there and try to find funds. I think that there should be more fundraising. I don't know how much it is possible. For example, for a travel grant, the PhD students, I think, are allowed 800 francs. And for field work, that would not even cover the plane ticket for many places. So I think more fundraising is necessary. I will definitely raise this issue. And more transparency, as well as better communication of available funding opportunities should be a priority. Thanks.
Thomas?
Yeah, well, as I said in my platform, this is something we need to keep track of actively. And I would say, again, I mean, the priority and what I can commit to is definitely information, which means advocating with the Institute to disclose let's say, at a sensible time of the year. For instance, right now, or a few months ago, they allocated funding for incoming students. And also, they are defining, around these last few months, they have defined how many TA-ships they will have per department, and also the RA-ship positions at the research centers. These are all decisions that are made discreetly by the different research hubs and by the departments themselves. So I don't think, obviously, one cannot come and say, listen, what we're going to do is we're going to have the institute just, spell it all out to us and commit to more funding, because that wouldn't be realistic. But I do think it's realistic to think that they can give more concise information and a more, thought out and long-term outlook of, as a PhD student, of the possibilities you will have and what each department can provide and is likely to provide. I also think that obviously the Canton of Geneva, I think, or the Confederation has cut the funding it gives to the Institute for scholarship purposes, and so they have turned to private donors. For instance, I have a privately funded scholarship, so I don't know to what extent the Institute is doing this, but the more we know about this, I think GISA is a player capable of getting more information of this kind, perhaps not all of it, but more information per department, and spell it out to students as much as possible. That's the kind of commitment we can make. But I don't think it's realistic, despite our lobby experience or not, to lobby the Canton of Geneva to overturn a recently made decision regarding the funding it gives to the Institute. I don't think that's realistic.
I think there is a lot of money out there. I mean, how did we build the Maison de la Paix? It's just we have to tap into it, and we really have to make it a point to prove our hardships. For example, one of the things that we could do is make the university hire, or the institute hire, somebody who's working on donations, private donations. That would be especially for PhD students in certain areas. There could be 3 people working on certain focuses, or like one person on development studies PhDs, the other one on poli-sci, etc. And I think the other thing that we probably could lobby for is to decrease the tuition fees for PhD students, because as you may have noticed, if you applied from abroad, you're paying 2,500, and if you applied from here, you're paying 1,500. And that's a big change. I mean, it's a big difference in terms of funding. So I don't think there is a reason for it. I mean, I don't think it's fair. And I think a lot of people who have been here for a long time are paying too much. So they, I think that we have enough grounds to argue that they have to change the tuition.
Can we have a 1-minute closing statement from each candidate? Do you want to go in reverse order from last time?
Yeah. What was it? Okay. Yeah, so thanks for the discussion and for the questions. Surely the proposals and the issues that we've been discussing reflect a relatively consistent agenda for what is coming up. There's no need to reinvent the wheel here, in terms of PhD needs and concerns. I have myself also talked to dozens of students, and it is reflected in their opinions, the kinds of things that we need to focus. So we need to focus on what's important, and I do believe that we can improve how this representation scheme works. And as I stated initially, I am very confident that together with each department's rep, we can help GISA become the kind of reliable partner that PhD candidates need, that provides sensible and timely advice, transparent information about key issues, and that advocates consistently for the right changes, for realistic and sound changes. So priorities is my focus, and that's going to be my job. Thank you.
So I'll conclude with a few words on why you should entrust me with this position. For the past 2 years, I've been actively involved in student affairs and representation. I have been the class representative for international relations and political science for the 2 years, tasked with organizing class meetings and social-cultural activities, as well as facilitating communication between the institute and students. This year, I also had the opportunity to lead a GISA student initiative, the Language Café, which promotes linguistic exchange. Through all this engagement, I believe that I have gained insight into the workings of the institute and GISA, and above all, I had the opportunity to establish contact with many people. Building on my past engagement in student affairs, I am motivated to represent and defend PhD students while working with all the 3 main stakeholders of the institute, that is the students, faculty members, and the administration. You can also be sure that I will continue to be active in the student community, participating in and supporting academic and cultural events, as I have been doing since the moment I have stepped foot at the Institute. Thanks and good luck to all the candidates. Thanks again for the organization of the debates, and thanks everyone for coming.
I guess there's not much more to say except I really want to do this because I have had I've seen what's going on, and this is my third year here. It's actually my fourth, but I skipped my third year. So I know exactly what to do and how to go about it, and I think there are a lot of issues that we really need to work on. I thank GISA for doing a lot so far, but I think there's a lot more to be done. And I would be able to do it because I would have time. The only thing I'm doing right now is writing, and I have a side job which doesn't take much time. But I hope you will vote for me because I really honestly want to do things for the PhD community, not just for the first year, but for all PhD students who are out there in the world and here in front of me. So that's about it.
Thank you very much for